Hello, guys and gals, me Mutahar, and it's a pretty alarming day because, ladies and gentlemen, those files are actually finally coming out, ladies and gentlemen. So long story short, for anybody that has been following this massive, story, if you will, everyone's kind of been talking about it, the whole Epstein file stuff. Now, the reason why this stuff is important to me is I've covered a lot of crazy, creepy things on the internet. I've covered private servers on the internet where children were being groomed, things of that nature. I've covered a lot of really dark points, even on the dark web, or so to speak, looking at actual myths, realities on there have been things that, there's a lot of scary stuff that happens in the world. And sometimes that scary stuff is just so massive that it has the ability to control parts of our life, whether we wanted to or not. Now, somebody like Jeffrey Epstein was so huge, and he had so many connections to so many powerful people that control literally everything that we do in society, right? And so when that person gets exposed for trafficking children and basically running one of the most disgusting operations in the world, obviously I think we as society members care who the hell that guy is connected to. So we don't vote these people into office. They don't run parts of our world. In fact, they rot in a prison cell, or preferably in 6 feet under, in my opinion, if you're doing anything nasty to children, right? So to me, this topic isn't something that's, we're dabbling in the world of politics. I normally don't care for it. This is something where I think, everyone in the world should be against trafficking minors, right? Isn't that just a standard case to have? Isn't that just a standard belief? There's a lot of things that I think people can be contrarian about. This is one of those things where being a contrarian is more of a goddamn self-report. So of course, obviously, in the old U.S. government, there was a vote for H.R. 4405, releasing them Epstein files. And finally, all of a sudden, ladies and gentlemen, with all this hemming and hawing, suddenly it got a massive yes vote. 216 yay for the reps, 211 yay for the Dems. And only one individual was like, I don't know about this one, Chief. It's going to be a no from me. Now, who the fuck is this person who said no? That would be Representative Clay Higgins. Now, Clay Higgins decided to have a principled no on the bill from the beginning. What was wrong with the bill is still wrong today. It abandons 250 years of criminal justice procedure in America. So as written, the bill reveals and injures thousands of innocent people. So if enacted in its current form, this type of broad reveal of criminal investigative files released to a rabid media, I love how they say media, I think the world just wants to know. So even as a Canadian, I know that there are Canadian billionaires, millionaires, policymakers, people that run my country that are actually, working or had worked with Donald Trump at some point. This guy had such a far-reaching case around, okay? So it's insane. And again, obviously, when I look into what this person is saying, he wants no innocent person to be hurt. Well, here's the reality of it, pal. Innocent people have been hurt in the situation. And if you actually look closer at the bill, I would actually sign up with this principled stance if it wasn't for the fact that they had permitted withholdings. For instance, the AG, which is Pam Bondi, the ball licker that couldn't even do this properly, may withhold or redact the segregable portions of records that A, contain personally identifiable information of victims or victims' personal and medical files or similar files, the disclosure of which would constitute a clearly unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. Okay, that's fair enough, right? The victims are being protected from an unwarranted invasion of their privacy. B, depicts or contains CSAM material, which is obvious from the get-go. No, they're not going to release the disgusting CSAM tapes to the public. That is not expected, nor would anybody want that. Letter C, would jeopardize an active federal investigation or ongoing prosecution, provided that such withholding is narrowly tailored and temporary. So number C is going to be pretty important, but we'll get to that after I read through this. D, depictions of death, physical abuse, injury of a person, obvious. And E, contains information specifically authorized under criteria established by an executive order to be kept secret in the interest of national defense or foreign policy, and are in fact properly classified pursuant to such executive order. So again, if the president, for instance, wanted this information, something specific redacted, they could sign an EO for national security reasons. But given that this is about a child diddler, and again, big people getting exposed, I don't think that's usually a good look in this situation. Now, of course, obviously, you might be like, okay, well, they voted for it. How quickly? Well, it immediately got passed to the actual president, and the president, from what I understand, is signing this thing through. And as it's signed in, it's going to be 30 days before you, me, and Dupree have access to all of these fucking files in a searchable actual format, okay? So I'm imagining, with Gemini 3, the FBI is coming together to vibe code the Epstein release files for anybody to read, okay? So this is something that's apparently coming down on our road. Now, obviously, look, there's been so much hemming and hawing in this situation. You were like, wait, how did the president go from calling people piggies to signing this stuff immediately? Well, actually, there's been a lot of changes to that, too. A few days ago on Truth Social, if you don't know what Truth Social is, it's like Donald Trump's personal social media website. If you're wondering what kind of stuff is on here, well, it's just him and all of the people like-minded. It's basically a hug box for the right, as is Blue Sky being the hug box for the left. We live in an internet comprised of hug boxes now, okay? So again, obviously, you go to this website. I just have to show you this ad. Halo Grow, Dr. Shuck, natural method restores hair growth. I can't wait to see dick pills being advertised here. Look at that AI image. Proudly made in the US of A. God damn. Now that the Democrats are using the Epstein hoax. So I don't know what is a hoax. I assume he's referencing to the media frenzy surrounding it. But really, I wouldn't say anything regarding child trafficking to be a hoax. It's kind of a bad look, Mr. President, just saying. Involving Democrats, not Republicans, to try and deflect from their disastrous shutdown and all the other failures. I'll be asking AG Pam Bondi, because she was such an excellent pick on this, by the way, and the DOJ, together with our great patriots at the FBI. Oh, yeah, I'm sure. The same FBI that, yeah. Yeah, I mean, what were they, just like subpoenaing a goddamn archive machine the other day? Didn't they have a whole controversy surrounding private use of jets? To investigate Jeffrey Epstein's involvement and relationships with Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, J.P. Morgan, Chase, and many other people and institutions to determine what was going on with them and him. This is another Russia scam with all arrows pointing to the Dems. Records show that these men and many others spent large portions of their life with Epstein and on his island. Stay tuned. Man, they're kind of billing it like it's the next fucking season of Severance. Bro, this is a pretty serious human trafficking situation. And the thing about it is, what I really dislike about this whole story is how left versus right brain that it's become. Look, at the end of the day, okay, I don't give a shit what political aisle you're on, okay? I don't care if you're somebody that is super right wing or super left wing. At the end of the day, all right, I just, if there's anybody on either side of the aisle that has ever diddled a child, abused a child, or done anything to anybody uncouth, I think they should go to jail. I think they should be buried under the jail, okay? I think no matter what side of the aisle you're on, we should be just focusing on stopping bad people, okay? That's really what Draining the Swamp is about. At the end of the day, we should not be living in a society where criminal acts like this are tolerated and in some cases are rewarded because these people are put into positions of power that allow them to increase their wealth, increase their control and dominion over average people. No, I don't think those people should ever be given any form of leeway, okay? These people should be shamed, they should be hung and quartered, and that's pretty much how I think most civilized societies should operate, right? And I don't think that's a wild take to have. At the end of the day, all right, I can't, we can argue left and right about Windows and Linux, which one is worse or the other. But one thing that we shouldn't be arguing on is the safety of our children, okay? That is just something that should never come into question, in my opinion at least. So obviously now he's starting a new investigation on those Dems, which, again, is interesting. It was called a hoax for such a long time. Now we're going to be investigating the hoax. I mean, you got to pick one or the other at this point. You can't be making a joke out of the situation or be using it for political warfare, right? At the end of the day, these are children that should be... These are people that really need justice. and justice should not be treated like a fucking Netflix comedy special. Now, a few days ago, there was also like stuff that I talked about where, people who were prominent Republicans were called in and they were kind of like, I guess, reportedly told, hey, you better not be voting against me. You better not be voting for these files. And now all of a sudden, pretty much everyone but one voted, yeah, we should get these files on. I think a lot of it just comes down to how bad it optically looks to fight against disclosure. Because look, at the end of the day, these files were going to come out in one way or another. I think it was such a sold campaign promise. People are asking for exposure. And, the old method of trying to ignore and pretending the problem will go away is just clearly not working. So, at some point you have to kind of flip the script and just go with releasing this information. Now, whatever comes out of this, my dad was telling me this, and the reason why this video is a thing is because when my dad tells me, did you hear about, like, apparently Bill Clinton was getting orally pleasured by Donald Trump? When those words come out of my dad's mouth, yes, I feel like a mental flashbang has gone off. So I don't know what's really in these files. Like, at the end of the day, if Donald Trump was scared that, him giving head to Bill Clinton allegedly was in these files, bro, if I was the president and I had that information on me and people were calling me a child predator, bro, I would go rent out every IMAX 3D stage and put video of me giving head, because that is far better, okay? that is substantially more legal than getting called a child diddler, okay? Insane shit. So again, if this information comes out where, yeah, Trump is actually really innocent, maybe he just did some, like, fucking gay stuff, I guess you could say, on an island or with like other politicians, allegedly. I honestly, like, I wouldn't care, okay? I don't think most people would care. I think most people are interested in like how Jeffrey Epstein utilized his connections and sold and utilized underage people to, build connections, to collect blackmail, so on and so forth. I want to see who was compromised and who was doing nasty things, genuinely illegal and nasty things. That's what I think most people are really interested into. Now, the other thing that comes out of this, obviously the final part is, do you think that these actual files are going to be what the Epstein files really are? Because remember, we haven't really truly seen what the files are. So, much like the actual prison footage that actually ended up coming out regarding Jeffrey Epstein, if you don't remember, looking through the metadata for the prison information showed that it was likely tampered information. And the government kind of billed it that it wasn't, but really people with, technical expertise, I even showed you how to do this on my channel, figured out that there was some tampering going on. So I think what's going to be interesting is as this trove of files releases, there could be a chance that maybe the redactions are too heavy. Look, if there's something national security related, maybe certain files won't come out. Maybe these files have already been scrubbed of like the really dirty information because they've been behind a sort of government wall for so long. But the thing is, I think with the metadata, I think with how sloppy the government is, that information will come out. And given the fact that this is such a huge undertaking, because it's going to require a lot of hands on deck, I don't think that having this many people work on this is going to lead to something. If they were censoring information, for instance, there would most assuredly be a whistleblower, given how, paramount the situation actually is. So no, I don't think you can have this many people work on it and there actually be a conspiracy that functions the way that it should. So I think what we'll get is the real information. And I think it may be damning. I think there's definitely going to be some redactions into the story, but I don't think the government can afford too many redactions, given that people want to see big, huge politician names. People want to see who this person interacted with. We can obviously understand when, victims are censored, victims are, or at least like redacted in this stuff. That makes sense. But any big name that gets redacted, people are going to have a lot of questions, and we're just going to go back to square one. But I think a big thing about this is, look, at the end of the day, okay? At the end of the day, the people kind of won, okay? You're getting your files. You really are. Now, hopefully these files are what people are deserving of getting. I hope these files are the entirety of the files, and I hope that there's nothing missing from it. But honestly, at this point, I'd be an idiot to assume and believe anything the government says or does. But yeah, the files are, I guess, coming out. It's the wildest turnaround that I've seen. But yeah, we'll see what it is. Maybe there is a chance that these files are coming out and the decision has been flipped so easily because Maybe the FBI, maybe the government actually did do something very illegal and tamper with these files to remove names. But again, I'd have to really prove that. I'm just getting into speculative territory. So when this stuff comes out, pay attention to the metadata. Pay attention, use your ChatGPT eyes and see if these files are truly actual files or maybe they're modified files or whatnot. And pay attention to the legal team surrounding this entire case, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of cross referencing. There's going to be a lot of cross. There's going to be a lot of checks and balances there. But ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.